Hey, what's going on, everybody? Since you're watching this, I'm going to assume that this means you're a proud liberal. And I think you should be proud. You're liberal because you believe in equality for everyone, regardless of race, gender, or religious affiliation. You believe in justice, freedom of association, human respect, free speech, standing up for the marginalized, and working to better our society one day and one action at a time. These are amazing ethics to hold. The beliefs of modern-day liberals are integral towards maintaining and advancing our civilized society. Now, would it shock you to find out that libertarians hold the same beliefs? Like you, libertarians want individuals to live a life full of happiness, peace, and prosperity, and most importantly, a life which leaves people free from the dictates of men and women with authoritarian desires. I think libertarians, liberals, and conservatives are all striving to better the future of the human race. And we owe it to future generations to think long and hard about the values from which our ideologies spring. We owe it to our future children and grandchildren to challenge our own values of how the world works and how it should work, to find our consistencies and eradicate our inconsistencies. Libertarians believe protecting the independence of the individual protects and nurtures the freedom and prosperity of the masses. Defending the freedom of the individual should be the first principle from which all efforts of social organization should stem. Now, here's what I mean by first principle. Slavery was wrong and needed to be abolished. The question of how will cotton be picked and harvested if slavery is abolished doesn't matter, because first principles of respecting the freedom and humanity of others was being violated. Slavery needed to end, period. Here's another example of first principles. The draft. The draft forces young men to attempt to murder other young men and subject themselves to being murdered because of the disputes between politicians. The question of who is going to fight the wars caused by politicians doesn't matter when first principles of respecting a person's freedom and independence is being violated by the draft. The draft needs to end, period. Now, contrary to popular belief that libertarianism is a right-wing political philosophy, libertarianism is actually a social philosophy dedicated to discovering the first principles of human interaction which will maximize human happiness, harmony, and prosperity. In order to best secure an individual's freedom and maximize human respect, libertarian philosophers have spent a great deal of time thinking about the basics of human relations. And many libertarians come to the conclusion that there are only two ways which human beings can use to fundamentally interact with each other. We can choose to use persuasion to interact with each other, or we can choose to use coercion to interact with each other. Basically, you can walk into your local Starbucks and persuade them to give you a cup of coffee. Now, this is usually accomplished by trading money for their coffee. Or you can use coercion to get your coffee. Now, usually this is accomplished by brandishing a weapon and threatening physical harm or death in order to get coffee. Now, ask yourself, what type of culture would you like to live in? One where people use persuasion or coercion? Do you use persuasion or coercion on a daily basis? Do you think you would have a prosperous future if every time you wanted something, you used violence or the threat of violence to coerce another person to give it to you? Do you think a people who use coercion over persuasion would lead to a wealthy and peaceful society? I think we can agree that if human beings decided to use coercion as the first principle guiding their relationships with others, society as we know it would quickly fail. It's easy to recognize that a culture whose people use persuasion over coercion will lead to a happy, peaceful, and prosperous society. Recognizing that adherence to first principles of using persuasion instead of coercion will progress society to be more peaceful and prosperous, libertarians base their social philosophy on giving others the basic human respect of never initiating coercion against other human beings. Period. The philosophy is as simple as that. Libertarians are focused on evolving our culture to where people stop using coercion in all aspects of their lives, and this includes politics. Our cultural evolution can only take place if people like you and I think critically and deeply about the values which human beings should use to interact with each other. We must explore the foundation of our social philosophies to see if our ideas are truly built upon progressive values. We cannot advance our culture using a broken, outdated value system. Libertarians believe that a social value system which is truly progressive and capable of sustainably advancing our culture towards more peace and prosperity is a system of adherence to first principles of persuasion instead of coercion in all forms of human interaction. What if your politically progressive beliefs violated the first principles of using persuasion instead of coercion? Oftentimes, we are so rigid in our political beliefs, we forget to examine the values which build the foundation of our beliefs. We forget to ask ourselves, am I truly progressing society? Or is progressive just a label that my political team uses? Throughout all of human history, there have been individuals who advanced the ideas of the masses in order to free them from old prejudices and corrupt value systems. From the Founding Fathers and their fight for self-governance, abolitionists fighting to free human beings from the chains of slavery, Susan B. Anthony helping women win the right to vote, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King helping to end segregation. All of these people were great thought leaders of their time. They all worked hard to transform their minority-held personal values into popularly held social values, and we are all indebted to them. These leaders of the past were true progressives of their time. Not only did they fight for personal freedoms, but they focused on elevating the consciousness of the oppressors to rid them of their desire to subjugate and oppress other human beings. But what if these great thought leaders were limited in their advocacy for true human freedom? Because for the most of human history, we've been using an unethical and outdated system of mass coercion to settle our differences. Why did the Founding Fathers have to fight in the first place? And what protected and enabled slavery's existence? The truth is, there is an outdated system of mass coercion that turns normal people into authoritarians, wastes trillions of dollars, and diverts brilliant minds to building machines exclusively designed for murder, gives power and armies to homicidal men, has enslaved and murdered hundreds of millions, and which constantly divides society in a battle to use its coercive power to suppress others. Now, this outdated system is government. The very existence of government is built upon values of oppression and coercion, values which are stopping true human progress. When you have a need, you ask and you persuade other human beings to trade with you and to fulfill your need. When individuals and governments have a need, they use coercion, backed by the use of gun violence, to obtain resources from others. Government is built upon a value system which throws aside the persuasive values of respecting the freedom and humanity of others, values which you use on a daily basis and which enable our culture to thrive. While many politically active individuals constantly talk about a revolution, what our culture really needs is an evolution. There can never be a revolution or an evolution so long as we use the same broken, outdated value system of mass coercion. A system which pits men against each other in a deadly political game of winners and losers, where the winners use the gun of the state to force their lifestyle and beliefs on the losing members of the political game. Now, does this sound like a value system which is sustainable and provides peace in the long run? It's time to evolve. We need to evolve how we regulate our differences with others and throw away the chains of coercion. Using coercion to regulate our interactions between two human beings is regressive, not progressive. You cannot be a modern-day progressive if your beliefs revolve around using the gun of the state to advance your personal values. Mass coercion is and always has been regressive. Period. Those who are committed to removing structural forms of coercion from society are true progressives. Libertarians are the people whose ideas are based in peace and love and tolerance, justice and equality. Libertarians are the ones that are working hard to persuade others that the libertarian minority-held value of persuasion over coercion should be the majority-held belief. Modern-day libertarians, like the abolitionists and Martin Luther King, are the individuals which history books will look back upon and say were responsible for freeing the human race from a system of mass coercion, plunder, and corruption. Libertarians are working to advance the values of the masses in order to free them from old prejudices and a corrupt political system of mass coercion. The fact that you took the time to watch this video means you are open to new ideas which seek to advance mankind's social values. You are ready to be a true progressive. True progressives are striving to rid mankind from the desire to control and subjugate other human beings. True progressives want to evolve our culture and persuade individuals to hold voluntary interactions as the primary ethic, the first principle which guides their interactions with others. Libertarians as a people want to progress our culture to the ethical standard of always using persuasion over coercion. Now, what does a culture without governmental structured coercion look like, and what does that mean to you? I have videos on this channel exploring what a culture can look like without coercion, and will continue to make videos exploring how a truly progressive culture would work. Now please subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on the libertarian social philosophy. And this has been The Thing with King.